And now we'll have some question and answer. Any questions, ladies and gentlemen?
And my question is for myself, how to determine how much willpower toward practicing, because but I have a lot of willpower in a certain kind of way, and I would like to finish my mantra practice, but again, it seems to be a question of how to balance it. Perhaps you could say something.
What prevents you from completing the practice or nundo? Is it because you don't have time or because you are lazy? What prevents?
No, it's time. It's deciding to do one thing as opposed to another thing. Everything I decide to do seems important to me. Like I was.
Why you said the lack of time? Because of your work, or because of you have involved many different kinds of practice, which a lot of people do. They try to practice a lot of practices.
Oh, like Manjushri practices and other kinds of practices. No, work.
Okay.
And commitment in my life.
Of what?
Yeah.
Marriage.
I see.
아고송아 냠nen기 제베기 두수 직샤. 되는 소소가 내가 제베 두수 샤니. 되는 냠nen디 배나다 dev지가 망부 연구면에 님아 딱와 되는 소소가 가서 두바 제네. 되는 제 되는 디딩도라 되는 제가 로레르날 두수인다 톰나 참다다 잡던데 되는 제네 양보요레스. 담밍 마버리면
That might be if you might be helpful if you make a specific time for your practice of the day. Even it's a short period of time, that if you put that time or reserve that time as your practice time, and that regularity, consistency, even it's short, keeps you really development. And then as you keep that regular schedule of your practice, even it's a very short, within every year, if you can go to retreat of a month and so, that would be then helpful to really complete any practice. It is very important. You have to make because as you said earlier that you seem to have willpower, you have determination. So with all those qualities, it is important to make time for practice. Otherwise, the time cannot make time for your practice. Understand? So you have to make time for your practice.
Yes.
My understanding of the Vinaya is that it was written for monks and nuns and not for lay people, and that many, many little rules and vows are taken to basically determine a life which is simpler, and that aids one to developing the type of determination you're talking about. I'm wondering if you could talk to us as lay people about leading up to that determination, how to develop that level of willpower that we always keep the samaya.
지단게 Vinaya ti la bena soso taba rige istene yegayores. Jene soso taba rige na la bena ta genye tang tene genye la genye ge tene nangse mangbuchi chedu tene di bena migale yores ba. Ti yebazire madamares. Zo di tene ta bena trabatsola res. Tene yinayang then merk seal tati khansego turum le tene disemju yungu yoreso
semju yungu yores te kunjo
de chochine tenderes de tende yungu yores de yinayang tene tajik toki tene bena 소수gen dorna tisheveres ndurwa seati ge tunda ngome ngo de kansha yoresana tene sos shene sheden che papang tela tene ndurwe ngo sha yores te indu tene bena keranzo 미저 속에 bena sta gelong gisu nan신기 bena timang부 숭토게 메나야 가라 간sam게 소수게 숭토베지 숭고 여러바스 te 숭완 때네 대이나야 te 숭토베게 다 소수게 윌 파워지 고고 여레스 대인데 찌게찌라 된 수름 숭완 때네 대 용어지 코니 당부 수름도 숭완라 숭토발라 소수게 된데지 고고 여레스 나 대르고
again that in the many discipline that there's also the 8 svaka rules, and generally that the disciplines, the vows are divided into many different levels, divided for discipline of a monk or nun, but they are definitely the vows and commitment for lay men and women. Basically speaking, that the essential nature of Vinaya is that avoiding every harmful action to living beings. So in this idea of the avoiding every harmful action to living being means that not being involved in the conflicting emotion of anger, attachment, ignorance, and harm someone intentionally, so that as long as you keep yourself disciplined from not to do so, in order to keep that discipline, you need willpower and determination, regardless of your nun or not, or monk or not. So therefore discipline or this morality is required to lay people. Of course the number of the discipline of the monk and nun are different.
As a lay person and practitioner in the West, most of us hear these words and then we interpret for ourselves what it means to be disciplined and moral and ethical. And I find the line is fuzzy because I've never really completely understood, if you can do something or you can't do something. I never really thought about it till tonight, about how important knowing some of these steps could be in helping you to stay more true to discipline. It's very easy to fool myself. Like, for instance, recently we had an infestation of these horrible food moths in our house. They laid all their little worms in the food in the cabinet, and there were worms crawling everywhere. And then the worms turned into moths, and there were moths flying everywhere. And I felt I had to kill them. I mean, I felt terrible every time I did it, but I did it because there was no way to stop them from multiplying. They were going into all the food, and they were just... and I felt terrible, and I still feel terrible every time I do something like that, but I do it because I don't know how to balance, keeping a clean house with, not ever killing an ant or a bug. So I find this very difficult area to not create further negative karma through discipline.
야고 말했어. 근데 팀마 인베게 근데 탑신다게 거네. 베나톡스 가서 오래다. 탑시 따야지 개침부시라래. 심지 소제세야지. 짠이야고 말했어.
As honest as I can be, that killing is not really good at all, regardless of it's your house or whatever. So of course, through skillful means, you can find other means of preventing them, which is fine, but destroying, killing of whether it's an animal or human being is not at all positive and not at all virtuous action.
So I think next time you try to instead of you just killing them, you just put in some plastic bag or something, and then you just throw away in east. We have a lot of cockroach in the kitchen, so they do like that. 이네 디치는 게 좋아하는 거네 야군도 제단 다티 가르세 독세와티 this 디 베나타 가서래 미전다부지를 이나 개념 그 넘버스도 되네 베나 소 쮸바 마진 멤버 미출라메 그주 디숨디 베나 타메게 수이네게다 넘버 산지바 인사도 소 미쮸바다 되네 마진 발렘바 세야테다 근데 미술하면 주세야 돼. 사마통원 사도다 최고 거거다야 쓰게 열어봐. 대숨도 맞춰야 돼. 딱 거라 땡데 고고요. 그래서 대숨도한테 상매게 답변아 넘버군수 레나다 말레나다 대숨도 고고요. 그래서 대인도 대숨도 딜레야게 개념이 좀 봐요. 근데 대땡도라. 근데 변화 소소가 찬라 소베다 근데 마통야. 근데 대땡도라. 답변 지든 kim바다부지나. 근데 변화 사상 기든데다. 근데 개념
your question has a very good value actually. It is something that everyone has a problem dealing with insects and bugs and so forth. But one must try the responsibility of life and try to find other means rather than destroying or killing it. And it has very valuable point. Meantime, although that has a very valuable point, there is no accurate or precise solution to that. And even if we are householders, lay men and women, that the basic discipline is really required. The basic discipline here is that not to kill, not to steal. In again Tibetan, it becomes more not to take what is not belong to yourself. That's more literal. So not to steal. And the third one is not to involve in the Hippocratic thought or Hippocratic mind. In this sense, what really it means is that you try not to spiritually lie, that you are realized, experienced being, and so deceive the people in order to gain fame and name for yourself. So you lie, that is becoming Hippocratic in the spiritual sense. So those are the basic three laymen and women's discipline, and based upon that, then you can also, if one feels, take more disciplines, or if you like to call it as a vow or commitment, such as not to drink, not to smoke, and so forth. Those three are the very much basic that we must really follow. And then there is also upasaka vow in Sanskrit, which is being very loyal to your husband and wife. And that is also upasaka vow, that you are committed, both men and women, to one husband and one wife.
So actually, there's lay precepts. It's called upasaka vow. It's part of the Vinaya, and then it has a different precepts you can take. And those three, what I pointed is the main. Since you take refuge and following the Buddhist path, and those three is the, you have to keep it. And then, top of that, and then if you are, committed, then you can take the vow of the not to drink. Basically, not, because when you drink too much, then you loses your awareness. So that, and then of course drugs, and then therefore lay precepts that, and then somebody is married, and then there's the precepts called one partnership, and that kind of thing. So there is precepts for the lay people too, and then next to that, and then it comes the novice monk, junior monk's vow, and then gelong, the senior monk's vow. So it's if you're really committed, it's good. It's good to take the vow. So then, once you have a vow, unless you really doesn't care, you wouldn't kill. Otherwise, if you don't vow, then like as you say, when situation you faces, and then you may kill because you don't have a vow. So that's the reason it's good to take a vow of those things. Yeah.
I got the same experience as this lady, I got a new garden, 3 years ago, and I don't know how to take care of the garden. Then 1 year later, all the garden comes a snare, and I spent lots of money on the flower, then all the flower gone, So I was so upset, so I sprayed the chemical. Then 1 week later, all the share become empty, and I feel so sad, I almost cry, my purpose tried to kick them out. I don't want to kill them. So after that, I feel very regret. Then after about 1 month later, I was so tired in my car, and I put my hand on the window, and my relative just closed it, so hit my finger. Then 1 week later, the finger become some decay inside. And the nail comes out like the snail shell, and smell the same, exactly the same. So I know that's the karma, So after that, I start to, pray for those snail. My thought is thinking that this snail, why they comes to me, must be some kind of karma. And I know that all the animal has been relative to me in the past life. Maybe they are my parents, maybe they are my brother, and they come to me because I know some of the Buddhism philosophy. So maybe they ask to me something. So since then, I treat those snares as part of my relative. So every morning, when I pray to the Buddha, I chant the great compassion, the mantra, and I put the water. I did very sincerely ask the Buddha, give me the help, to release those snares, So every day, every morning I pray and I chant the great compassion mantra. Then I told my wife, from now on, no more chemical, just this kind of water. So we keep spray. Then it did happen, the snare lay by day and released and gone by themselves. I don't know why. From now I never spray the chemical, 2 years already. And the snare just, reduced to the way that I can stand for and the neighbor can stand for. And the same thing about the ant. One night I got a dream that lots of rubber, come into from the window. So I don't know, and the room is dark. So next day I find lots of ants coming from the window, the place that in my dream. So I was very upset too, so I don't know how to do, so I tried to, move them out. And after that, after the ants gone, then I sprayed the chemical around the window, so they won't come in next time. Then about 1 month ago, they came in again, and all over the place. And I decided don't use any chemical anymore. So I don't know how to do, so I keep chanting the great compassion also. So I kneel down and face to the window, say, hey, please don't come in. And I chant the mantra, great compassion mantra. It's miracles. The next morning they're gone. Never coming again. And I worry they're coming again, but I never find them anymore, I just don't know. But I'm very sincere, That's my personal experience.
It's true. A lot of times, like, it happens, and even in a Tibetan community, I can tell that, because in India they have lots of rats, mice, so they eat a lot of things, clothes and things. So some of them, they try to, kick them out. And then, so when they kick them out, and then they just come back, they eat everything. And if just you let them stay, they really doesn't harm you, that's really, it's common. So, what this gentleman was saying is really true. Because generally speaking, it's harming, or just harming is not so good. It's not good at all. And then especially killing, it's bad. And then especially you never know, how, this karma. Like one of the great scholar, his name is the I forgot his name. Katayana. He's one of the Indian scholar, Buddhist, very famous teacher. And he was meditating in a cave. And then he saw one lady, and she's carrying a child. And then she's eating a fish. And then in front of her, and then one dog standing, and then expecting to get some, bone or something. And then, that teacher was just, through his meditation, he's watching to the lady. And then, actually, what she's carrying, the child, is her, the previous life, is her enemy. And then what she's eating, the fish, is her mother. And then the dog is her father. And then, as dog standing in front of her, she got very upset, and she just kick him out. And so, this is just example, I'm not saying that because they can be your parents, so you should not harm. But, actually you never know. And then, so that's why in Mahayana teachings, as mentioned, that all sentient beings are your parents, and then, your relatives, you never know who they are. So, this is not really, killing is not good. So you must try to, in future, all of you here, you must, if you don't kill them, it will go away. Yeah.
I do not want to really bring my own story, but actually when I was doing my Dojo Senpa, we had moved in an apartment, and there were a lot of cockroaches. And of course, as I was doing Dojo Senpa, I really, try to move them out and the best way I can. And it went on and it went on, and finally a year later, the house was covered. It was all over. It was in the beds. It was crawling on the children. My husband was really desperate, and so was I. And I felt very sad and very bad, but eventually I called on someone to spray the apartment, because I really didn't know what to do. It was catastrophic. And now when you say that, maybe I should just have moved, which really I thought of it, really. I really didn't know what to do. I feel now you're saying that, I feel, at the time I asked a teacher, and he said sometimes there is karma, and, but obviously now when you say that, I feel very bad and very bad. And what do I do now? Start my Dojo Senpai again. And I don't know, I really feel terrible, because it says many cockroaches. It's not one cockroaches, and it's many of them.
I think you should start Dojo Senpai again. Yeah, really. And then not to kill again. And that's very important when we talk about, because every time since you start practicing, we always talk about mindfulness. So mindfulness, and if you don't care, this animal, so and what really does, it doesn't make mean what kind of mindfulness is. So we have to understand that, because once we are Buddhist, and it's very important not to harm. Means it's very important. Kasore, then tenshi seyati, then shenla, then rana never masaya jang betun dar tenshi tensi yo marwas. Then ngana teaching semje seyati, mangwis yo marwas. The tenje jil nguen sing yo marwas. Touching to meet jim bachi the tenje jil nguen sing yati then yo marwas. Did karas kunas rana maso getin.
Buddhism as stressed as mindfulness,
mistake
so much
teaching me.
upon the mindfulness that if there were no sentient being, if there was no bugs to bug us, then we have no object to be mindful of. Mindful doesn't mean just yourself to be mindful of everything around you, and the sentient being really help us to be more mindful that are around, so we must take them as a very much positive rather than negative, that we can really enrich our quality of mindfulness as the sentient beings that is there. Without that object, then the mindfulness becomes, the very idea of mindfulness becomes sort of unnecessary.
nganazo lojong kapsula lojong gi chikti chechik nyamne na thwase ya de thondati gombe kapsula pena lojong samje mayimbe thuda number kundu lojong sungdo was.
In the mind training, it explains that now out of the 7-point mind training, that one point explains that we must apply the mind training in all the activities of our life, which explains that the mind training should not be only practiced when you're in the shrine or sitting down, but outside when you're engaged in the worldly activity. So that really expresses that really expresses that we need to be mindful and also practice the exchanging of self with other, particularly not in sitting alone yourself and trying, but when there is more trouble, like in case of the mice and of the roaches or insect, when you have more trouble, that is a moment you try to apply the mindfulness and exchanging of self with other. So that's what the whole idea of the one of the 7-point mind training expresses. When you have no problem, it doesn't mean that you have to exchange self and other, but you exchange that when you are within, very much inside, in the depth of the problem, then you try to exchange.
Yeah. Yes.
Sorry about that.
It seemed in my own experience that when I finally, after trying to quit smoking many times, because I understood it was not healthy and so forth, when I finally became very sick of or disgusted with the habit, then I could quit. So there seems to be determination, seems to have to do with revulsion or something.
Really? Yes. Bena, tagarale kiran bena da kase ore koa ningbu meba tonya ti, koa la ningbu meba tona. Tenderes kiran jusya de yawushiran dos. Bena lodo nam koa ningbu meba tona, tel tene tendenge tene kase ore ngeban jung tona, tel tene te koa le lodo sambe da kase ore ti.
Yes, it's very true that in order to again want to practice and liberate from samsara, you have to see the meaninglessness of samsara and get some sense of revulsion to the samsara, and then the really feeling of need to liberate or separate from samsara comes. Otherwise, that will not happen. So that is necessary to have some sense of revulsion to whatever.
Ta yina yang tene nginju tsamjil tene yungu yamare sosugese tene benatil bena slap ko yo bastas.
So the revulsion alone is not sufficient to get rid of what you are very much bound with, but in addition to that, then applying yourself to the discipline or practice that led you to really actualize what you are trying to achieve. Very good question.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
Is discipline has to do with remembering the revulsion, or?
I see.
Trace.
Yes. It is not once revulsion or for one time is not sufficient all the time.
Oh yeah, that's all.
Okay, that's all for tonight.
Kundo Sambo Teyan Tekin Teta Punje Gewan Dada Tamje Rado Mo Sanje Kusune Chinye Mingre Tembe Gende Meche Tembe Chinlaji Setarang Hoa Manandro Paraisho Katerendong Monzara Yonzo Kasoro Sidra Nation. Thank you.